Hey, Mattie, what are we talking about today?
Michelle, it's our final episode of the season, so we're gonna have some fun with it. Today, we are both introducing our 2025 Mattie 50 list. The Mattie 50, of course, being our rank of the top 50 national universities and how we order them based on whatever metrics we see fit. And we're showing off our list to talk about them. Sound fun?
Sounds fun. I can't wait to see this.
Okay, Michelle, it's been a long ride for our season one of College With Mattie podcast. Mattie 50 is pretty good though, right? Like the original Mattie 50 came out. I wrote it in 2020. Basically, what I did was I came up with a name and thought it was pretty good, so I went for it. And I basically took the U.S. News World Report top 50, which will be coming out soon, after people see this one. What I did is I basically was like, well, I'm gonna make my own list. And the original plan was to like show how rudimentary or arbitrary and silly lists were. But in doing it, it was kind of the opposite effect, where I kind of just like radicalized myself and like, no, Stanford is definitely better than Caltech. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, sorry, it's better. Uh, I guess what we've both done is an updated version of it. And for this one, I basically went back to my 2020 ones and changed some stuff around. And I had the same takeaway the first time, is that these lists I don't think are going to shock and baffle people, is my guess. I also went through your list and noted the ones where we differ, and it
Mhm.
is kind of within the lines more than like these lists are not going to be insane, and if only because, well, the U.S. News Report and your average car rankings, like, say what you will about their methodology, the results of them tend to speak to what customers actually want. Like that is a consumer's guide. So, and thus we also, as people who are professionals we also like want consumers of college, I suppose. We are the ones who are helping them achieve those goals. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap to the point where I look at the list like, I get how these are the most popular or the best schools. I don't know, these are the ones that people are paying us to help them get into, so I don't know.
Right.
Um, but I guess we can begin. My methodology for the list is I started the news report. Best way to describe it, I think I wrote in 2020, is like, if every student I've ever worked with got into every school and at least like asked me like for advice and considered it, what order would they go to every school in America, is kind of how I thought about it. Where, so this is the most important aspect, is actual students we have worked with. Well, when they actually get into actual schools, a combination of like how excited they are, really, also how devastated they are if they don't, kind of matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of students are like, oh yeah, I love Stanford, Stanford, and they'll get there like, I don't care, like whatever. Like this stuff matters to me. But the biggest one is, and they get it by, well, the top, like the more a student picking a school over other schools that are also elite, that sticks with me, especially when that doesn't naturally match what you might expect. What was your methodology in ordering your schools?
I guess mine was similar. It was more like vibes. Like, yeah. What are like people's perceptions of these schools? How much are people talking about them? How much do students want to get in? And being a parent, how good does it look for bragging rights to be a parent having a
Yeah,
student at one of these schools?
yeah, and I that is definitely going to be. I can see that being an aspect. There's a little bit of like, yeah, my version, like I'm the parent in the situation. Like, how much swag do I feel about
Yeah.
it? Um, I guess all this leads into th probably what's interesting is this list is significantly more refined the closer to the top of the mountain we go. Is that every like I have we'll be why don't we begin? Let's begin with we broke into tiers for simplicity's sake. So we'll be talking through them in kind of our tiers, and mostly going over schools that I guess were notable versus the common percent in the U.S. News report, or also like we had different kind of views. So your first tier is the first 10 schools, and I guess you could go ahead and read it out.
MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Caltech, Cornell, UPenn, Duke, and Brown. I call these
Yes.
the schools where you have bragging rights for life.
Hmm. My tier is a little bit different. I actually have two, I guess, sub tiers.
Hmm.
And that also part of this, you'll get to see the difference between Michelle and I on a lot of different levels, where Charlene is going to be imposing how we formatted our list. So here's mine. There's tier 1A is HSM, Harvard, Stanford, MIT. Tier 1B is YP dot 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 C parentheses W parentheses, which is Yale, Princeton, Caltech, and then I put Wharton here. Which,
Hmm.
if you had, I guess I could just put you on the spot. Where would you put Wharton? Probably ahead of Penn itself.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it would be, It would be Cornell at 7. Huh? We'll get to that. Curious. Yes, it is not going to be shocking that both of us have HIPSUM as the five kings of college admission. We also both have MIT, Stanford, Harvard. The big distinction is that I feel there's a pretty notable gap between Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and also Yale, between Yale and Princeton. Harvard, Stanford, and MIT, those are the three schools those are the crown jewels of college admission. And I put them all tied, but however, I did put that Harvard, Stanford, MIT for a reason, even though they are all tied at first. But I cannot. These are the three schools that I have had the most excellent diligence students ever. Those are the three they tend to want, and those are the two they tend to get, which is cool.
Mhm.
But whereas Yale and Princeton, it's just not quite the same. And let me and well, one time a student did pick Yale over Harvard, but the parent thing, the fact I was like, that wasn't a good idea. Like, I don't know. That is why they're in different tiers. Because that's really as I see it, is a tier system. Any student picking any school within a same tier, like totally, I totally get it. Is when a student picks a school from a tier below it over. That's where I go, huh? And and I spend a lot of time thinking about it, where it's either like, I guess I get, and that's how Caltech has hopped into this club. That's why Wharton's hopped in this club. And what I
Mhm.
really see this top tier is it is schools that I believe with full sincerity that there are the most excellent or donor students that if they could go absolutely anywhere on the planet, they'd want to go to one of these schools. And I fully believe that. It is hard for me to believe that quite the same for anything else that comes after it. Because what was your distinction of getting of these versus the tier below it?
I think, yeah, just pretty much everything that you said. And also, anytime you mention one of these schools, it's going to be, it has like global recognition. It's going to be recognized by the top different like employers and things like that. Parents are going to be super proud. They're going to drop these names whenever they can to let people know like where their kids going to college.
Yeah. I totally understand. How did Cornell get in on this? Why is Cornell at 7, Michelle?
Okay,
Explain.
that moved higher because of the parent perception, because I noticed that, like, parents who have kids going to Cornell, the reaction people are, like, really impressed. So that kind of, like, moved the scale for me with Cornell.
Well, also a lot of our students are interested in Cornell, and
Yes,
this is me like at my worst. Is that like I Cornell has been very good to the College with Mattie family, I will say,
that's
and I
true.
and I was like fellas, ladies over at Cornell, like down in Ithaca, thank you for all the amount, like 7 years going back all the way to the like the very beginning. Cornell has been very good to me and my clients in a way that I deeply appreciate. That's so is Yale, I guess. It's been cool too, but no. How much of this is influenced by the fact that a lot of students want to go to Cornell, but know that that's influenced by the fact that for the same reason I recommend Cornell or Decision to a lot of students that don't really care. They just want to go to a good school.
Mhm.
Why is Cornell at 7 though? Because the parent aspect I find very interesting because I don't have that in the same way. Like, I don't really know. Like I kind of do though, and like parents are pretty poggy about the other schools on this one.
Mhm.
Cornell is something that's weird about Princeton and Yale. I've noticed is that it's like the Roy Gilmore effect. There's a achievable flame of like Princeton and Yale and even Wharton,
Uh-huh.
and like which Caltech kind of has. I don't really know. But MIT, Stanford, and Harvard, I have students who apply there over and over, and like they don't think they're getting in. Even if they do end up getting in, they're like, seriously? Like it's like a meme, you know? It's like you take a crack
Yeah.
at MIT, Stanford, or Harvard. Well, that's Princeton and Yale are approachable, but that's also why I did Cornell cannot be in the same tier because I know personally, like Cornell is a ace in the hole. It is a smart play that
Mm.
I'm not. For reference, Cornell is going to be 15th on my list. It's not like I hate Cornell,
Right.
but there's. I guess you can load up. There's my tier two, which basically you overlap at the top. Like you can load up my tier two, which is Columbia, Duke, Penn, Brown, U Chicago, what I refer to as Blue Bloods. These are in I also that's the key difference is like these schools are excellent, and I don't want this just to be like a college bashing session, but
Right.
ratings are weird in that way. It's like these schools are fabulous, and it has been an unbelievable dub for students, for us to get it done. And schools have been and schools have been super bummed out. It hasn't worked out. The only difference is that every single school, maybe Brown's the only one that kind of jumps out to me. I feel like every single student who's gotten into one of these maybe did, but no, it has been because we knew that it was a smart option to apply early decision here as opposed to taking a crack at Stanford. That like, yeah, they
Mhm.
probably prefer to go to Stanford, they probably prefer to go to Harvard, but it did you like but no, we're gonna play our own decision at Duke. You like Duke, right? And they're like, yeah. And I go, whereas there'll be other students where I sat there and talked to a girl, which we wrote about what was it? It was either last year or the year before that. She wrote about being in nature. So probably last year. It was 2 years
Oh,
ago.
yeah, okay.
We're applying early decision to Cornell, and I had a straight conversation. It's like, are you sure you want to apply early decision to Cornell? Like, you probably could get into a stronger school. And to be fair, she sat there and, well, you remember this girl. It was a little bit of like, I like it, but also I was like, are you sure? Are you like just nervy, right? Like those conversations are why it doesn't get to be in Blue Bloods, because those will come up in Blue Bloods. A student who comes to me and wants to apply to Duke or Columbia, or I don't ask any questions. I go, great, and I'm glad that they're yeah, even if they could get into Harvard, I still wouldn't push them on it. Like, awesome, I don't ask too many questions because this is a huge accomplishment or a huge dub. And also, I know it will be easier, and I know it will be more functional to aim an early decision result. But you can see now that like we're entering just like strategy tier. Like the way I see schools is
Yeah.
I'm like they are pieces in a bigger puzzle. That's just not how I see Harvard, Stanford, Yale. Harvard, Stanford, Yale is like let's go poggy woggy. Like I want to get in. Princeton, Yale is that, but a little bit like less exciting, right? Like so is
Mhm.
Caltech, so is Wharton. That's what makes it its own tier. Is that like the energy I have behind it is like, okay, well, we're gonna see what happens, Zoomer. Like we're gonna do our very best. Similarly, it's like when a student does get in, I'm either like unbelievably excited, like this, like LOL, we did it, or I realize that I threaded the needle with one of the most excellent students in the country and did not fucking blow it. Like those are my
Mhm.
two reactions when a student gets into one of these. Yeah, those are the two. Like Poggy Woggy, I'm the best at this. LOL, I knew it all along. Or like a cold. I read that it was like 4.2% early this year, and like a cold sweat comes over my brow. It's like I could have dropped the ball on this kid because like this is the best they got, and I get. And to be fair, I've never actually taken the L in that way, but I just don't feel that way about Duke. You know? Like Duke's great. Duke's great. I'll also read. Yeah, there's a little bit of overlap. I will also finish out my top 20, which is 18 schools because I don't know, which is Dartmouth, Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, Cornell, Vanderbilt, UCLA, and then Berkeley, which kind of matches your tier two. And you
Mhm.
go ahead and read those.
My tier 2, Northwestern, U Chicago, Dartmouth, Vanderbilt, Columbia, Hopkins, Berkeley, UCLA, Rice, and Notre Dame.
Yeah, I put also elite and okay, you're pretty smart. I guess
Yeah.
it's interesting is yeah, like the public perception, and that is definitely going to be something I understand. I'm not a parent. I'm not wrapped up in like college admissions. I read about it. I read DC Urban Moms. And, like
Oh
that's
my
how I learn about
gosh. They're so
shout
mean.
shout out. It's if College Confidential and 4chan had a baby. It's my favorite website. Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of key differences here or like anything crazy, but that's what I say is we are not like, and it's not just because like this is the list. Like this very much matches. It goes back. We talked about rankings. It very much matches, but like perception of how much students want, like the swag factor, or whatever,
Yep.
and how much of that is itself fueled by the elite stay elite. I don't know, and it's easier for me to wonder that not yeah, even Berkeley, UCLA versus the other UCs. It's easier for me to wonder as like, are these being propped up by the rankings themselves? Like, Chicago's has to go into that.
Mhm.
But then I feel better because two schools I had dropping, the two schools that probably fell the furthest from, let's say about 5 years ago. The big one was UWash, Illinois. Because I don't even remember the name of it because like that school's parking. Yeah, where do you have it? Do you even have it on here? Wash U, excuse me.
Well, oh, I
Uh,
have it in my tier 3,
yeah, yeah,
22.
yeah. So Wash U fell for me all the way down. It'll show up eventually. Where's this school that no one wants to go to? Exactly, I can't find it. Similarly, Rice fell like 4 or 5 slots down, and it's still
Oh.
Rice. But that isn't. If you want to know, by the way, like the Supreme Court overruled an incredibly important right to choose, and how it actually affected college admissions is students don't want to go to Rice anymore. It's like spoiler. That's the only thing that changed apparently. Those are both like one has a story behind it, so maybe it's a little bit different. Like, there's a reason students don't want to go to Rice anymore. The other, I can remember in 2019, God, Wake Forest was like 27th in the nation or something, and like I had students applying to Wake Forest, and I was like, I don't get it. But that seems to even itself out
Oh.
because they don't actually like Wake Forest and don't get it, and then Wake Forest is no longer a top 30 school. So I guess yeah, is yes, but otherwise it's mostly similar. You have Berkeley and UCLA, just like I do. Berkeley and UCLA are
Mhm.
basically they are the same. Yeah, Dartmouth, Chicago, Cornell at 7 though. So like I can't. That's the thing is Cornell at 7. Parents really. I feel
They
bad
do,
because
they
Cornell.
like it.
Well, a lot of I've applied to Cornell, and we have more students. I know I have more students at Cornell than I'm pretty sure any school in America, or I've sent more there, including Berkeley, UCLA. And I
Mm,
will not lie to you, part of that is Cornell. I have a lot of students that may very well end up at Berkeley or UCLA, but they get into Cornell early decision, and now they're at Cornell.
right.
And look, I guess my list is not simply like the most popular destinations. Cornell will be number one, like number
That's
one. Like
true.
you got it, guys. But it's the difference between how we see this process. Where I feel I'm cynical to a fault. I think in making my list, it's like if it's too easy to get in, and students are like too happy to go there, or like too like relieved to go. I don't know. It's like it that is not the
Oh,
same.
yeah. Okay.
And this just remind me of our prestige argument. It's like I fall for it, but like the way it actually presents is weird mind games like that. It's like the number one school in the nation should probably be like Berkeley, UCLA. That's probably the most actual schools that like students we work with like just want to go to.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
true.
so then that leads to we have now kind of left top 20 land. I have 18 schools in it. You have exactly 20, right? If I had to add them back in, Rice could come back in, and probably Carnegie. If I could modify it, I think Carnegie might make the end of my list. Where
Mhm.
we're now in tier three. I guess I'm in tier four, but you get the idea. We're in the same area. I have called them the Inbetweeners, which is Rice, Carnegie Mellon, Georgetown, USC, Notre Dame, NYU, Michigan, Emory, and Tufts. What do you have here
Mm,
as your
okay.
third tier?
Yeah, mine are called We're Not Ivies, but Don't Sleep on Us. Carnegie Mellon, Wash U, University of Michigan, Georgetown, USC, NYU, Emory, University of Virginia, UNC Chapel Hill, and UC San Diego.
Yes. So yeah, your Wash U comes. Did I mention Wash U in this, or did I
I
like?
don't think you could find it.
I think I may have went to move and just deleted it because like who cares? Like Wash. This is good. I have it at 32, so it's
Oh, okay.
so the in-betweeners, these schools tend to be fairly interesting. It's why I do believe I would move Carnegie actually up. I think Carnegie gets to be like 19 now, but who cares? These are all schools. What they have in common is that a lot of our students do apply to them. And this goes back to like my Ivy Max days. However, the students who tend to get into these schools don't want to go because they are accepted to a school higher up the list. Or the students that are really interested in it tend not to get in because they tend to be the weaker students we work. That is because
Mm,
like they're kind of in between of different
yeah.
schools where I think we're both going to be getting into our next ranking is like kind of the meat and potatoes of the work we do. It is a lot of state schools, and then above it we've just spent all our time talking about like Cornell Tech, like all that stuff is like only really kind of applies. These schools these schools absolutely like to believe they have the same appeal and the same like craziness, college admissions mania that all the schools above it do. Certainly the schools like Berkeley, Cornell, Hopkins, but
Hmm.
they don't. Like these are the schools that I do on December 29th with students all the time. They are referring to these schools as backups is both not quite correct and also it's mostly just not correct more than it's mean spirit. I don't know, but like that is yeah, they're backups. I don't know, like, if a school if, like, a students who if a student I have a lot of students that we're doing it on December 29th. They're the 17th and 18th school we're doing because, like, we gotta apply to Georgetown. I don't know. And these are not schools that I'm mad that we're doing on December 29th. I agree. We need to apply to USC. We need to
Yeah.
apply to NYU. Like, it is important we build that base. But, like, it continues back to the strategy aspect of it. It is no longer like, the difference between that is, like, I want to apply early decision to Duke because we'll get a higher chance, and, like, this is gonna be a tough shot. The prestige tends to match difficulty, and maybe that's why I'm such a stickler about like what it means to me to apply is because like that there's a very tight comparison with like and I guess it makes me how difficult school to get to and how much students seem to really care about it, and whether that's fair or not, like that is how it manifests for me. I don't think it's that hard to get into Rice and Carnegie and USC if you have the stats and do
Right.
things right.
Yeah.
You don't need to. Similarly, yeah, Carnegie Mellon has ED2, so does NYU, so does like we always play early to Michigan because that's helpful. Like NYU and Carnegie both have ED2, and every year there are students that seem fairly interested in Carnegie or NYU,
Hmm.
only for us to me to explain like, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna play early decision to a more difficult school, and then if that works out, great. If not, then we're gonna play early decision two for like Carnegie or NYU, and then you'll have a much better chance, in my belief. And they go, okay, great. 0 times in my entire career have we actually applied to that ED2 school, be it Carnegie, NYU, and a little bit sometimes it's Hopkins, but mostly there's like those that like that's Vanderbilt's on there as well. Like we get into that tier. Students don't actually care enough to like lock in any sort of commitment to them when we're doing it.
Oh, okay.
And especially after we have this is after they don't get into Stanford or Duke or Brown or whatever. And like those schools yeah, I guess like ED2 school is like a pejorative that I could label certain schools as because that's what they feel like is that That's what when students are interested, I'm like, oh, so that is ED2, and they always go, yeah, maybe. They never ever actually apply ED2 because they don't want to be, they don't care that much. What was
Okay.
your your logic of these? Yeah, what do these schools mean to you in this list?
I
In
think
your third tier?
similar where it's like maybe it's not your top choice, but don't forget about these schools because they're still good schools and lots of students still, they're top choices for some students too. So don't sleep on these.
Yeah, but then there's to be fair, like, I have to go back to the Charlene, I said the I word again. You have to go back to the to be fair, you have to go back to the tutoring center days for me to have students were like there'll be people who are like, how dare you? USC is incredible. Like Georgetown's my dream, and that's totally true. There were students that like Berkeley, UCLA. Those students, even at the time, knew it was very unlikely because their stats weren't quite good enough. Like that was often the key. They had a
Mhm.
3.7 or a 3.8, and they'd seen the charts and they just knew intuitively that they're not getting into and they were correct. Like in California. However, USC and NYU and Georgetown, there really was their dream school, and in a purer sense than anyone's dream school has been Johns Hopkins or Brown or Duke, Vanderbilt or anything like that. That just doesn't come up because the students we work with who have like a good shot at that, they want something bigger. But there's students that were really they they don't even know what Harvard is, kind of stuff. This is almost like me. USC was my dream school. It really was. But that was due to the nature of me knowing I had no goddamn shot at the really like higher ones, and may or not have actually wanted to go. But that is, and similarly, you tend not to get into your dream school if yours is your dream school, you tend not to get into it. Just like if Harvard is dream school, you tend not to get into it because it's difficult
Mhm.
at that level. That's why it's a shame.
Oh,
Eh,
that's my dog.
he made all these episodes. He was a good boy,
I know.
and then my
He's a bad
cat,
boy
my
today.
my cat rolls in and like 8 of them, and then that okay. Right, and it's similar as he goes down to that, and yeah, my it leaves me with kind of a weird taste. I guess like Virginia, UNC, and San Diego are more like a tier below that one. But yeah, Emory, NYU, USC, Georgetown, Michigan. Michigan's got I like Michigan. Michigan's cool. WashU and Carnegie. Yeah, we have similar lists in this regard. What they all kind of have to me are just it's never like they bum me out a lot because a lot of students who care about them getting rejected because their stats or whatever they're not strong enough in general, or students getting into it and being it being an email they send me, be like, but got into USC by the way. That is how
Mhm.
I got into Notre Dame and Berkeley. That's cool. And then I don't even respond because Duke's coming and like Duke's coming next week.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
it's very different than the Cornells of the world that I have like a deep understanding of and like relationship with like how that school actually. But this is the opposite where it's like, yeah, it's a bummer my kids don't get in, but also it doesn't make me think the school's that important when I have students. It's one of 3 schools. They also, they include a bunch of like Virginia Tech in there as well. It's like thrown in there at the same time.
Mhm.
And yeah,
I think, like, parent-wise or even and, like, globally, some of these schools do have, like, brand recognition, like
totally.
Carnegie
And
Mellon, USC, NYU, they're recognized around the world, so that's kind of, like, why I have
that's
them in that
why
tier as well.
that's why Carnegie and I think Michigan get to escape. I think those are I'm gonna if I can I can remake I'm gonna type it out right now 19 and then my numbers will be all screwed up like it always does when I make lists like this. So I don't really care because it won't autocomplete. But basically, yeah, no, I'm gonna type it out. You can include the typings. 19 is now Carnegie. 20 is Michigan. And you can include the typos I put. Yeah, like those are my top 20 because going on this little like mean spirited rant about schools, Carnegie and Michigan don't really apply in the same way. Carnegie and Michigan, definitely not Michigan. Like we have students who end up in Michigan, although I like Michigan. They've also been cool. They're like the cool. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Michigan and Cornell. Like they're part of the playbook, right? Yeah, these schools don't have quite the same feeling to it, but that is definitely Georgetown, USC, NYU, and yeah, I know this is going to be controversial because I realized like, oh no, I insulted Michelle's son. But that
I
was the
didn't
thing
say
is
anything.
right, but that was the deal is also it worked. It was swaggy. Like that's the thing is I also have successes in this range and
Mhm.
the students are very excited to go there. And maybe it puts me in a tricky situation. I'm biased heavily to the fact that the majority of students that I and we work with are going to be gunning for your top 10, top 20 schools type situation. So to
Right.
be outside that top 20, it is going to inherently place you in a situation where you are probably bumming out my students if they end up going there. Like and that's maybe not fair to the school, but that is how it sees. Okay, so now we move on to our it'll be a very similar one. My tier 5 I produce very good schools, which is TM. which is Georgia Tech, Virginia, Boston College, Texas, Washington St. Louis, San Diego, Santa Barbara, Chapel Hill, Irvine, Davis, Case Western, and University of Illinois. What do you got?
Okay. My tier four, I call them bitter about the rankings. And I have UT Austin, University of Illinois, BU, Georgia Tech, University of Florida, UC Santa Barbara, Brandeis, UC Irvine, University of Washington, and Tufts.
Well, it's which rankings are they bitter about? The U.S. Node reports or both of ours, which are nearly identical?
All
And
three, probably.
is Texas mad that it's 31 independently on both of our lists? With
Yes.
no, like I promise, we did not cooperate on building these. Is Yeah, Irvine and Davis mad that I looked at your list and I was like, yeah, San Diego is a tier above those two. Like, it's
Right,
like,
right.
yeah, that's the one thing I wish I realized you did better than me was like sort the UCs because I didn't really think it through too much because I see them all the same. They're not. Is that the rankings they're upset about, or is it something else? Like, which rankings are you referring to that they're upset about?
The US News and World Report, because I mean, the top 50 is still like pretty prestigious schools, but they're in the, the 30 through 50. So people don't necessarily like recognize them, and they're not as prestigious, unfortunately. So it makes them a little bit bitter.
They have benefited, I do believe, in the last year or two that schools like Tulane and other privates that were trying to game the system, they have been heavily punished, and state schools at least a little bit have moved up, but not that much, And they're kind of these schools are stuck where they're. Georgia Tech is the one that I could put it up a tier above, like closer to Michigan or something like that, maybe, but it's not quite
Mhm.
there. Georgia Tech is the one school in both of our tiers. It's like that has kind of gas to it, and that's only if only because it is in an increasingly tech focused world. Like it is one of the few tech schools that there are students who don't live in Georgia who care about Georgia Tech and are willing to go to a state
Yeah,
school and pay out of school
that's
state school
true.
prices for that. And it's only happened once in my career, and I don't think it's going to happen very often. But the fact that students don't hate like will apply early and are not just doing it because we make them, like that does matter. Where similarly, the fact that I don't get annoyed by it like I do if they're applying to like a Virginia Tech or it's like whatever you want to say about prestige, it does still exist down here, kind of in this area. It shows off in different ways. It's not Virginia is not an elite school. It's just a very good state school. Like very good schools is a type of school. Like it is meat and potatoes. It is students from these state. Well, they're mostly state schools, and what they'll have in common is students from these states either would really like to go because because it's like a reasonably priced thing that they would like to do, uh, or they're out of state and they will at least humor us in applying to them if we want them
Yeah.
to. hmm They will never go. We don't expect them to go, but a lot of these schools we do a lot of work on just because it's often kind of the work we begin with because state schools works more straightforward. That is as I see it. Students are either from the state and really want to go almost in a like kind of weird way because I don't think it's particularly difficult to get into any of these schools, in my honest opinion. And I have to like, but even those students, like the really elite ones, like closer to the deadline, that you like. Okay, either they really want to go because like they undersell their own application strength and they end up somewhere else, or they kind of believe their own hype, usually correctly, and at the end of the day, you can kind of tell that like they don't actually want to end up at this state school. That would be a,
Mhm.
a, a bit of a, but it's not quite the same as what we'll get to in our last tier about state school. It's not the same energy, which I guess you could throw in like there's some other yeah, like if the student ended up there, even if they like want Harvard, they'd be like, well, that would be like, crap, it would be like the takeaway. Whereas, well, there are a lot of other state schools. I believe the term is that they would spit. Yeah, that's what these state schools have in common is that no student seems like they are just like they're the schools would just be beneath them in like a way that you get in a lot of. Well, sometimes there's some state schools that you might like really deserve it. Like there's some elite Northeast states, that
Mhm.
like I'm not gonna just like like no one wants to go to UMass, like no one wants to go to certain schools. But then there's a tier in between of like your Penn States and stuff that I think are pretty nice. I don't know, but students don't seem to like them one bit. So
Right, right.
that is where the distinction is made. Yeah, very good schools. These schools encompass probably the high like of all students we work with. I bet every single one honestly would apply to like at least a couple of these schools for one reason or another. just because
Oh, yeah,
of
definitely.
and if they're in the state, they will absolutely. I don't have to make them do anything. Yeah. What's your logic about? Yeah, they're bitter about the rings. Like, I'm sorry, guys. Like this conversation this is the most uniform part of our list together. I feel like is like what these schools are, where they belong, and why. But why do you think? Well, yeah. Besides that, they're cranky. Like, what do you see these schools kind of as?
I guess, yeah, it's like they won't be at the top of a student's list. You almost have to like remind students that these schools exist and that they're good schools.
Yeah.
And then when you tell them, like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess I'll apply there.
Yeah, these are always on my mind because a lot of these are due early. Maybe that's maybe I overrate like how important they are because they are the things we were cramming in October when it's, we gotta get done, gotta get done.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that you have to remind okay, you don't have students will do it without like too much issue, and much more is students. I don't feel annoyed doing them with students, I guess is the difference because
Yeah.
every year I do all these schools with a lot of them are tech based, and that's fine. And I find myself being like, yep, part of the system. I don't expect them to go, they don't live in the state or whatever, but I do it without, especially if they ask for it, so they ask for Virginia, yeah, Virginia, I go, okay, UNC. Okay. If they keep asking, I might be like, dude, you don't need to apply to UNC and Virginia. You live in Detroit, it's like it's a little bit weird. But what I don't find, and this is what falls down into, I guess, our final tier, at least for yours, I guess mine gets a little bit messy at the end. Like, you can go ahead and read your final tier.
Okay, my final tier is, well, it's not terrible, and it's Northeastern, Lehigh, Case Western, Boston College, UC Davis, University of Wisconsin, University of Maryland, Wake Forest, University of Rochester, and Rutgers.
Yeah, so I guess I can. My final tier is it's kind of messy because I was like, it was a combination of, quite honestly, it's the nature of what how I see this is I like when I get 50 of these,
Yeah.
and this is a combination of last year's list. It's I got a Tulane, Brandeis, BU, Northeastern University, University of Florida, Wisconsin, Purdue, UWash, Seattle, Lehigh, Villanova, Miami, Ohio State, San Jose State University, and this is all basically just copied verbatim from 5 years ago, and I don't really know if this process falls apart around University of Virginia, which is why
Yeah.
the short for this episode will be like Virginia is not an elite school. I actually the joke I make is that Boston College is the least elite school in America that is technically elite, and that
Mm.
yeah, it is the least prestigious school in America that is still technically prestigious. Boston College is the cliff is like USC Notre Dame range, really. You start going down pretty quickly. Well, it's tough, honestly. But then the very good schools, there's like you falling off the cliff, but it still kind of goes down a little bit, I guess. And that's the thing is you get to Boston College and yeah, Texas, St. Louis, San Diego. Now we are in things are much more practical. I think our discussion about these schools and the ones we can do now kind of mirror how we feel about them. That it is no
Mhm.
longer these are schools that we make sure we're doing before early action deadlines is due. I'm
Yeah.
talking to students about. I don't really think about like what would it mean to attend San Diego versus Wake Forest. Like that's not. I don't know. Like that is yeah. Like I don't know enough about honestly these schools or care I guess because they're two of the schools we were doing at the very end or even more like rushing for the November 1 deadline. Just because like we do that too. It's part of the package. It is hard to have that be what these schools actually represent in my day to day life, and then want to wax about how prestigious they are versus the schools we talked about already.
Yeah.
Um, and similarly, yeah, we get into the bottom end. Tulane's where I attended. I think the back end of a T50 is probably a fair spot for Tulane University, one way or another. Yes, it was. Well, it's not terrible. I kind of disagree for that rationale. Is that these are all schools that again we work with very elite students that have very high aspirations. These are all schools, and quite honestly, outside of like Texas and maybe Georgia Tech, everything, and you have Tufts lower than me, who cares? These schools are both like I tell students like if a student we worked with ended up at a school in these tiers, something went very wrong, and we need to have a
That's
real
true.
conversation. We need
Yeah.
to have a real you and I need to have like a conversation together about what the hell happened here because this can't like you would get to see cranky me, I guess, be like and like when I'm really mad. Yeah, that's my energy of these schools. It's again, I think I just went through and talked about every school is shit in America was how we talked about. But that's when you're talking about prestige, this is how the conversation manifests. And these are the real conversations I feel like that people at home who actually care about school like we want to hear, right? It's like, well, okay, what does it actually mean? Well, that is how and this reflects, yeah, if a student ended up it was yeah, like this is where my students end up if things like went horribly, horribly awry. Quite
Yeah.
honestly, your tier three, because your tiers are much more evenly set than mine. Your Carnegie, WashU, Michigan, Georgetown, USC, Emory, Virginia, UNC. That's where schools that students end up when things do go awry. How about that? That I simply don't have any experience where things all went cockwire, and they ended up at Rutgers or Boston or Case Western or Lehigh.
Mhm.
That doesn't happen. That's something I was like really worried about. So, but that's what students are worried about. They'll go that wrong. They're incorrect. It doesn't happen that way. But yeah, like that is why the last tier of your third tier, that is where students actually end up and are disappointed to go there. And I feel like I could have done better, kind of shit.
Yeah.
Um,
But
Everything after
outside of Mattie world, I think a lot
there
of
there
students
is no outside of Mattie world.
if there
It's
were
the Mattie 50. I don't know what to tell you.
if there was an outside of Mattie world, I think there are students who would be happy to get into a T50 school and think like,
Absolutely.
oh, yeah. But of course, in Mattie world, I agree with you. It would be something has gone wrong.
But what I can't say is I cannot sit there and people argue like the merits of Wisconsin over Purdue as far as it being an elite. I refuse. It simply is not a relevant conversation due to the nature of me actually working with students and trying to figure out like where they want to go, all that stuff. I've come to the conclusion that yeah, like UC San Diego, I like Texas, San Diego. I feel like I like that kind of as like your last stop for prestige for
Mhm.
it should be the U.S. News Report. If it was a 30 school list, I think I would like it better because that is my experience looking through it. Is there's at any given time there's roughly 30 or so schools that kind of can't. I know I can order it and talk about and like my experiences with. After that, it just turns into yeah, it's like yeah, I'd move Georgia Tech up because yeah, like those are the kind of microwaves like there's all our point and find schools in your like bottom tiers like nah, I think that school's relevant, you know, like yeah, irrelevant. It seems it's very merit spirited, but it's irrelevant in nature to what like elite, like truly elite prestigious schools people are talking about. It matters to people who are in the industry, and that is the very purpose of a list like this. So for
Yeah.
me to say like it's irrelevant is it's mean spirited, but it's also completely accurate to my actual life living and knowing what prestige means in this process. So
Makes
Michelle, that was the
sense.
College of Mattie season 1.
Whoa. That's crazy. A
um,
whole season.
yeah, we're going to we are now resuming to our day jobs in which we work with those students. I hope this path has been helpful for anyone listening. I guess the one thing I'll note is we will be back at some point. I don't know. I need to figure it out. However, I think the plan is going to be less podcasting and more. I want. So I'll say I want to work with an actual student, and maybe I'm just going to throw it out here. It's the end of our last episode, and if you made it all the way in, uh, if you are currently, let's see here, it's currently summer of 2025. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you are either a student or the parent of, I guess you are currently let's say you are currently in between your sophomore and junior year. That's very important. So if you will be graduating in 2027, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, if you're graduating in 2025, you're currently in the summer of 2025. You free basically when we'll be back, we want to actually like I want to actually get a student into college. Like that's the idea I have. Like that's
Mm.
season 2. And if you've listened to this podcast and you liked it or whatever, and you're still listening to this, the last one, we're 40 minutes in, contact me. It's Mattie at collegewithmattie.com. And yeah, like I feel like that's probably the fairest way to figure this out currently, because otherwise I'm gonna do so though, because that seems like the most likely way I'll actually like re-up all this stuff. It's like, okay, fine, like, the kid email me, and what that will entail. Well, that's you'll find out that everybody at some point in the hopefully near future. Sound good, Michelle? It's been a pleasure. Thank you
Yeah,
for
sounds
joining me for
good.
season 1. We'll do it again
Thanks for
next time.
having me.
Bye bye. I am now taking on students for the 2025-26 college admission season. If you are a current junior who's looking for help specifically with their college application and essays, you should check out my website. It's collegewithmattie.com, and there you can see my services, my blog with other written posts, as well as book out a free consultation where you get a chance to chat with me and see how I might be able to help. Looking forward to meeting you.